So we all know that Kuyo was someone Ray met when he was in Wellston in his past. If you haven't read the side story, this name is probably all but unfamiliar to you. Of course, this isn't the only time we've seen him. Kuyo made his appearance in episode 170, standing on top of the building observing Blake fighting Lance, aka Tremor Guy. I have a theory about who Kuyo is, and this of course was sparked by my idea in my routes video, where I talk about him and Blake eventually meeting up and Kuyo potentially offering him ability amplifying drugs. My theory is, Kuyo is indeed a part of Ember, and has some relation with Vulcan. I'm basing this off the fact that he was in a low tier town, observing Lance taking it over. In Vulcan's case, she was distributing drugs to buyers, it seems, but from what we've seen, it's only been going on in low tier towns. I'm making the connection to, what if they only distribute the drugs in low tier towns? So this is my theory with Kuyo. He was probably the one who put Lance up to taking over the lower tier town he was in. You must be thinking, why would he do that? My most probable answer is, Kuyo, unlike Vulcan, doesn't want to just be a regular dealer to anyone. He probably wants people to prove that they are worthy, I guess. Whether this be because he's trying to build up an army or whatever other reason. My assumption is, Lance was in the streets hearing about this ability amplifying drug, and he was probably thinking, if he could find a dealer, he could get stronger. Eventually he encounters Kuyo, and wants the drugs. Kuyo is probably like, yeah, I have them, but I'll only sell / give them to you if you can prove that you're worthy of them. So pause real quick. You must be like, why am I linking Kuyo and Lance together? Don't you think it's strange that Lance is in a lower tier town just trying to take it over all of a sudden when he's a mid tier? What would be the reason behind this? One day he just wakes up and says, I want to take over a lower tier town. That's just stupid reasoning, and especially if he has nothing to gain. Remember Waldo from the X-Ray chapters, episodes 95 through 99? So we find out he's amped up from the drugs, and we also learn from the dialogue, he was just a regular guy. Then he gained all this power and it went to his head and he took over our town. So what I'm trying to say is, isn't it weird that these amped up guys are just taking over lower tier towns? Lance though, he isn't amped, so this is my reasoning. He's told by Kuyo to prove himself worthy of the drugs, and is told, if you can take over this lower tier town, I'll sell it to you. This is exactly what Lance ends up trying to do, but we all know how that went, and he failed because Blake ends up showing up. Kuyo more than likely has a connection to Ember, the ability enhancing drugs, and Vulcan, because 9 times out of 10, a high tier won't be in a low tier town for zero reason. Vulcan was dealing the M drugs. My guess with why they're trying to take over these lower tier towns is for the money purposes, because it's strange that they're specifically pinpointing these areas that a regular high tier wouldn't even think about. All the money probably goes into their organization Ember, and the authorities that we've seen on a regular basis don't care about these lower tier towns. Why is Kuyo a part of Ember? I think this relates to the reason that Urutron made the Ray side story. Ray, as we've seen, was raised by his parents to not care about levels, as we see when he asks Remy the kid's levels that she's playing with, and his mom scolds him. Kuyo, on the other hand, we've seen that he's a typical elite tier, looking down on those if they aren't strong. We see how he treats the lower tier students and how he treats Ray for standing up for the lower tier students. Their viewpoints clashed, one being on the side of treating everyone equally, while the other believing in the hierarchy system. My guess is the way Ray's side story episode 2 ended up with Ray about to fight Kuyo is, Ray potentially ends up beating Kuyo, then starts rising through the ranks until he eventually becomes king, pushing Kuyo into the shadow and Ray taking on the light, spreading his ideals. My theory is, since we never hear anything about Kuyo at Wellston, especially in the flashbacks, he probably ends up transferring out eventually because he lost his position in the Royals. This experience could have been one of the turning points in his life that prompted him to join Ember, and potentially ignited the fire even more with his viewpoint towards lower tiers. Now back to the main idea. Who is Kuyo? I think Kuyo, just like Vulcan, is someone who is a part of Ember. Kuyo was an elite tier at Wellston, but after his loss to Ray, he probably lost his authority and was thrown from the light into the shadows. Kuyo is someone we've seen who honors the hierarchy, just like Arlo. Kuyo being a part of Ember explains why he's on that building just scoping out lower tier towns, and further insight the fact that he has something to do with the ability amplifying drugs. There are probably a few people who think maybe Kuyo is actually a superhero. That's why he was at the lower tier town. But that doesn't make any sense. If he was a superhero, wouldn't he have jumped in to help Blake when he was fighting and getting hurt, or when he saw the lower tier town being overrun? I also have the idea that eventually Kuyo and Blake will meet again. I said this in my routes video where I talk about Blake's character and his quest for power. Blake will run into Kuyo, and after some dialogue or fighting, Kuyo will offer Blake ability amping drugs, because he finds out his reasoning for being in a lower tier town is to fight villains and get stronger. My idea is, right now, Kuyo has interest in Blake because he's another high tier just like himself who's out in lower tier towns, and after hearing Blake wants to get stronger, he'll tug on this string. Blake, I believe, will turn down this offer at first. Kuyo would say, suit yourself, if you change your mind, you know where to find me. So in conclusion, who is Kuyo? He's probably someone who's affiliated with Ember and the ability amping drugs. Due to his viewpoint toward lower tiers, he probably joined Ember because their ideals possibly align with his own. He's in these lower tier towns to distribute these ability amping drugs to possibly build an army along with raising money for Ember. I know this video was a little bit shorter than you would expect, but it was just a theory video on who I think Kuyo is and his connection to Ember. If you really like this video, don't forget to subscribe and comment down below. Check out my Patreon if you really want to support me. I have the tiers will be there just to show you what you get from obviously becoming a Patreon. So also check out the music. It will be in the description, and any art that I did, it will also be in the description. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Do not forget to like and subscribe, all that extra stuff. Join my Discord, everything else. Peace out.